Welcome to A Styled Life, the podcast for purpose-led female founders and senior leaders ready to use style as a powerful tool for confidence, impact and influence. I'm your host, Alex Standley, multi-award-winning personal stylist, speaker and sustainable fashion consultant with 2 decades of experience in the fast-paced world of fashion. Join me as we redefine success from the inside out. This podcast isn't just about clothes. It's about personal power, purposeful style, and creating a life that aligns with your values. So whether you're running a business, leading a movement, or stepping into your next chapter, you're in the right place. Each week, we'll dive into the world of personal style, sustainability, female empowerment, and living with intention through real stories, expert insights, and plenty of inspiration. Welcome back to A Styled Life. Today's episode is one that I've been meaning to record for a while. It keeps coming up in conversations, whether that's with clients, at events, in my DMs, and I think it deserves more than just a passing comment. We're talking about sizing, specifically why so many women are having such a difficult time on the high street right now and what's actually behind that. This isn't a rant, it's an honest industry conversation from someone who spent 15 years inside the system as a fashion buyer, first at M&S and then at Amazon. I know how these decisions get made and I think it's time to say some of it out loud. So let's start off with the conversations that I keep having. Recently, I've really noticed a pattern. Women are coming to me who are accomplished, they're capable, high-achieving women. And somewhere in the early part of our work together, they'll say something like, I just can't seem to find anything that works for me anymore. And it's not that they've stopped caring, not that style doesn't matter to them. They're just feeling so overwhelmed and they're standing in front of a full wardrobe or coming back from a shopping trip empty-handed. And nothing is landing in the way that it should. Everything almost fits and nothing quite does. And they can't work out whether it's them or whether something has genuinely shifted. Often both things are true. They have changed, they're evolving, their life looks different, their visibility is increasing. And alongside that, the high street has genuinely become harder to shop and harder to navigate. And it's not just for women of a particular size, but for most women trying to shop with any kind of consistency. The sizing conversation is one that I find myself having constantly right now. And I think it deserves a proper airing. And this matters to me for a very specific reason, because the women that I work with are often at points of increasing their visibility in their careers. They could be stepping onto a stage, leading a room, appearing on podcasts, being photographed, and so their presence really matters. And if they've quietly resigned themselves to a wardrobe that no longer serves them, not because they lack taste or discernment, but because the system has made finding great clothes feel like a battle. And that's not a personal failing, that is an industry failure. So let's talk about it properly. So the first thing I want to address is why sizing feels so erratic right now, because it's not in your imagination. The average UK woman is now a size 16. That's a significant shift from previous decades, and it reflects real changes in how we live, what we eat, how our bodies have changed over generations, and retailers have had to adapt their size grading to keep up with that, which means the numbers on labels have shifted too. You'll know that if you've ever gone vintage or Preloved shopping, which I highly recommend, obviously, and we'll come back to that, you'll notice that immediately, because a vintage size 12 often fits like a current size 10 or even a size 8 sometimes. Like the sizing has moved dramatically. And then there's vanity sizing, brands nudging their numbers down so that a customer feels good picking up a smaller label. H&M did a significant overhaul of their sizing a number of years ago. Everything essentially shifted down a size because customers were consistently finding that their clothes ran smaller than the rest of the high street. And that decision wasn't made necessarily for fit, it was made for how customers were feeling. But here's where it gets more complicated, because sizing inconsistency isn't just about numbers drifting over time, it's also about what's happening inside the production process as well. With the rise of fast fashion and ultra fast fashion particularly, the fit process has been compressed, and that can be quite dramatic in some cases. A really decent clothing brand will fit garments multiple times before signing them off for production. They'll use fit models and they'll have strict measurements and guidelines. They'll set parameters to avoid too much discrepancy within the same size across their range. But all of that takes time, obviously. And for some brands, they're working to the kind of turnaround times we're seeing from some of the biggest fast fashion players, and that process gets cut because they've got a matter of weeks, not a matter of months, to get something turned around. And I know for a fact that some brands aren't even fitting on a human body at all. They're working from digital blocks to save time. So the result is that you can pick up 2 garments in the same size from the same brand and have them fit entirely differently. And trends also play into this too. So, for example, when oversized silhouettes are dominating the trends, which they have for a while now, a brand might deliberately cut a dress to run large so that it achieves that aesthetic of being oversized, which is fine if you know that that's what's happening. But if you don't, you pick it up, it doesn't fit the way you expected, and you walk out feeling like something is wrong with you. And nothing is wrong with you, it's just that the context wasn't communicated to you from that particular brand. And the oversized fit, from my own work, being a personal stylist for the last 6 years, it doesn't particularly flatter many body shapes. So you can often have this really strong feeling for something like an oversized blazer, and you think, oh my God, that looks amazing on the model, or it looks amazing on the mannequin. And then when you go to try it on, you're like, oh, it just doesn't work. You know, what's wrong with me because this doesn't work for me? So that takes us nicely on to the part that nobody says enough. And this is what I want to talk about directly. When you try something on and it doesn't fit, when the zip won't do up, or the shoulders are wrong, or the waist sits in completely the wrong place, the most natural human response is to internalize that, to think it's me. And I've watched women do this. They come out of the changing room and they're quieter, smaller, and I know exactly what's happening. The clothing industry has a long history of making women feel responsible for not fitting the clothes, rather than asking whether the clothes fit the woman. And that is the reality for a huge proportion of women trying to shop right now. Because here's the reality, most retailers still design to a size 10 or 12 and grade up from there. And grading is, if you don't know, what that phrase is, it's the process of scaling a pattern to different sizes. So it's not the same as just redesigning. So when you grade up significantly, then the proportions shift. So the seam placements don't always follow. So necklines that sit beautifully on a size 10 can fall completely differently on a size 18 because the underlying architecture wasn't built for that body shape. So one of the few high street retailers I'd point to as doing this with, a genuinely robust process. Having worked there, I can tell you that they fit on both a size 12 and a size 18 fit model, which means that they're assessing the grade across the range of sizes, not just assuming that it works for the standard size 12, not fitting on any of the larger sizes. But unfortunately, that's not standard practice. It should be, but it isn't. So if you've walked out of a changing room feeling defeated, that feeling is real, but the frustration, is valid. But the conclusion you drew about it being about you isn't. And we need to stop as women making it about ourselves and beating ourselves up and ultimately damaging our self-esteem. And I also want to bring in something that often gets left out of this conversation, which is the environmental cost of poor sizing as well. Online returns in Europe can run as high as 40% and even higher sometimes for certain retailers where women bulk buy and then return. And a really significant portion of that comes from fit issues because people are ordering multiple sizes, hoping that one will work, or returning because what they received looked nothing like the image. And unfortunately, increasingly, those returns don't go back on the shelf. The rising cost of processing returns means that some fast fashion retailers are destroying return stock rather than reintegrating it into the system. And research from organisations like the Changing Markets Foundation has been clear on this. Stock goes to landfill. The consumer doesn't see it, the brand doesn't talk about it, and there's a behaviour pattern worth naming that many shoppers have learned to choose options at the checkout that allow free returns, which makes complete sense individually, but it means retailers are collecting inaccurate data on why things are coming back, which makes it harder, not easier, to address the root cause. So sizing chaos isn't just frustrating, it's really wasteful for the environment as well. So I guess you're asking right now, what do you actually do? And this is where I want to move away from the industry to practical guidance, because this is ultimately what I want to give you. So the first shift that I'd encourage is this: stop using the label to tell you who you are. That number means nothing. It varies by brand, by country, by decade. It reflects a set of sample measurements that may or may not have anything to do with your actual proportions. So we really need to release ourselves from it, like genuinely release yourself from it, not just intellectually knowing it's true, is one of the most freeing things that happens when women work with me. The second shift is understanding that everybody has its own logic. There are broadly 6 female body shapes, but within those there are enormous variations, whether that's you've got a long or a short torso, different shoulder to hip ratios, different leg proportions. And that's why a Scandi brand might be brilliant for a tall woman and frustrating for someone that's petite. It's not necessarily that the brand is bad, it's just that it wasn't built for your specific sizing architecture. So knowing which brands are designed for bodies like yours changes everything about how you shop. The third shift is leaning in to Preloved, not as a compromise, but as a strategy, because Preloved gives you access to quality and fabric that the current high street often can't match, at price points that make sense. And when you know your exact measurements, not your size, your measurements, you can shop online with much greater accuracy. So platforms like Vestiaire Collective, Vinted, and Hardly Ever Worn It are serious options for women who know what they're looking for. And I'd really encourage you to measure yourself and to keep that somewhere on your notes or on your phone somewhere. But also I'd encourage you to measure your favourite garments as well and know what your sizing is, so that when you're shopping on Vinted, you can ask the seller to send you the measurements and then compare it to something that's a favourite in your wardrobe as well. So brands that are worth exploring that combine quality, considered sizing and sustainability. Ganni is one of my favourites. They're B Corp certified. They've got a real design-led approach, but they also go up to a 3XL, and they take responsibility seriously without making it, the whole personality of the brand. It's really eclectic. It's got that real kind of Scandi cool girl aesthetic to it. It's not going to be for everyone. I think they are better suited for a taller woman. But having said that, you can get things altered. So knowing a local seamstress is really, really important. Having somebody that knows your body and can adapt things for you is such a game changer. And especially if you're looking to buy things pre-loved, you can save yourself a lot of money and just spend a small amount getting things altered that fit you like a glove. Another one that has a good sizing range is Nobody's Child. So they use a lot of sustainable fabrics and they size up to a 24. You can also find them in M&S as well. And they have a few shops on the high street. We have one in St Albans. Reformation is another one. It's not a UK brand, but they ship here and there is a store in Covent Garden as well. They have an extended size range that goes up to a 3X as well. And then for investment pieces with a slower, more considered approach, Bauchgen, also their sizing is fairly generous and quite consistent, and everything is ethically produced. And as I mentioned, although this has not got the best sustainability credentials, and they do unfortunately have an increasing amount of polyester and man-made fabrics in their collection, they do a good job on fit still, I believe. And their denim fits really well and their trousers fit really well, and they do different trouser lengths. They do, short, regular, long, and they have petite. So I think they're a great one where you can find a lot of choice when it comes to size. I think the bigger picture on this, I contributed to a piece in The Independent on this topic quite a while back, and I'll put that link in the show notes. But what struck me in writing it was how much of this conversation still happens at the level of tips for shopping. And what I want to say here, and what I think is more important, is the identity layer that runs underneath it all. Because when women can't find clothes that work for their bodies, when every shopping trip is a lesson in what doesn't fit, what's not designed for them, what's not available in their size, it does something to how you carry yourself, to how visible you're willing to be, to whether you walk into a room feeling ready or feeling slightly diminished. And for the women that I work with, women who are leading businesses, speaking on stages, building legacies, that really matters. It matters strategically. The way you show up visually is part of your leadership presence. And if the industry has made it systemically harder for you to access clothes that serve that presence, it's really worth naming that. Style is not a luxury. It's the same strategic tool for everyone. And every woman deserves the same quality of experience when it comes to dressing with intention. So if this episode has landed for you, if you recognised yourself in any of it, I want you to know that this is exactly the kind of work that we do together. Not shopping for the sake of it, not filling a wardrobe with things that almost work. Building a relationship with your own style from the inside out, so that when you walk into a room, you're not hoping you look the part, you know you do. If you'd like to explore working with me, the first step is a style strategy call. You can find the link in the show notes, and we'll talk about where you are, where you want to be, and whether my work is the right fit for you. And I will catch you next week with another special guest. Thank you for tuning in to A Styled Life. If today's episode resonated, the best way to support the show is to share it with another trailblazer or leave a quick review. And if you're ready to align your style with your next level of impact, head to the show notes to book your free style strategy call. Because when your style aligns with your purpose, the world takes notice.